So when retouching skin, you may run into a situation where there's hot spots on the skin. Now this can be the result of someone's skin type. Perhaps they have oily skin, or maybe they weren't using makeup for the shoot, or maybe even poor lighting was used. So in this demonstration, we're going to talk about an advanced technique that you can use to either eliminate or reduce skin glare. So let's get started. So in this demonstration, we're going to be looking at ways we can reduce skin glare. Now this is an advanced technique. It's going to require knowledge of frequency separation, how to use layer masks and adjustment layers. And if any of this sounds unfamiliar to you, I invite you to check out some of my other videos where I talk about those techniques. So the first thing we want to do here is apply a frequency separation technique. And rather than go through all the steps, I've gone ahead and created an action. So I can just perform this action and it will create all the necessary layers that I need. I'll go ahead and click play. Frequency separation will enable us to work on the skin color without impacting the texture. So now what I want to do, I'll go ahead and get rid of this skin smoothing layer because I'm actually going to do something different. So we'll go ahead and select the texture layer, and then I'll create a threshold adjustment layer. So here we're going to use threshold to identify the areas of the face that have glare that we want to correct. And we want to make the area slightly larger than the area that we want to correct, because essentially what we're going to do with this is use threshold to create a layer mask. And because there's hot spots on both sides of the face, I want to make sure that I open this up just enough to include both. Now remember, with layer masks, black conceals and white reveals, and I want to keep this in mind as I'm moving the threshold slider, because eventually this white area will contain a new skin tone. So that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is open up my channels panel. I'll hold down Command and click on RGB. What this is going to do is automatically create a selection for the areas that are white. And now we'll create another adjustment layer, but this time we'll create a solid color adjustment layer. And you'll notice because we already had a selection, it automatically creates a layer mask. And now we'll select a skin tone that we're going to use for these hotspot areas. Now it doesn't have to be accurate. One of the reasons that we're using an adjustment layer for this is that we can go back in and change the color later. Now I can turn off my threshold layer. I don't need that. And I'm going to move the color fill layer underneath the texture layer and above the tone layer. And you can see it's already applying this color adjustment layer with the layer mask to this side of the face. So now let's go ahead and dial in the skin color. And this time, instead of picking the color, I'm going to sample an area of skin right next to this transition point. And you can see it's already starting to create a more realistic blend. You can see here we need to work on creating more of a transition here, and we'll do that. So now let's work on refining the layer mask. We're going to select the layer mask and hold down Option click. And from here, we're going to paint with black to conceal parts of the image that we don't want affected. So I'm going to just remove these areas. I don't want this to be affecting the hair. I want the layer mask to only affect the skin areas. Okay, so let's select the layer mask, and this time we're going to soften the layer mask. And we're going to do that by adding a little bit of Gaussian blur. And I'm going to dial this in until I can't see where this transition begins. So maybe something like this. You can see the before and after here. That's looking pretty good. I'll come back in here and paint in just a little bit more black, make sure that it's not impacting some of these areas. Okay, that's already starting to look really good. Here's the before and after. I'll dial in the color one more time. I'm going to sample a couple other areas to see if I can get a better matching skin tone. I think this one looks a lot more accurate, so I'll go ahead and click OK. So once we're comfortable with the color, then we can just dial back the opacity just a little bit, just to let some of that original back in. I'll go ahead and dial this back just a little bit more. Now we got a couple hot spots on the nose, and we're going to use a different technique for this. Let's go ahead and select our texture layer, and we're going to create a copy of all layers by holding down Shift, Option, Command E. So now we've created a copy of all of the layers, and we can come in here and use the patch tool to make this correction. We'll select the area that we want to get rid of, and then we'll just drag and drop it to an area of clean skin texture. And deselect, that looks pretty good. And we'll do the same thing with this area here. find a clean area of skin texture. And so now we'll go ahead and add a layer mask. We'll fill the layer mask with black to conceal. We'll turn our other layers back on. Because this correction has a layer mask, we can come back in here and just paint with white just the areas that we want to bring back. So something like that. And then we can dial back the opacity just a little bit to bring back in some of the original. So this image is looking really good. We can go ahead and delete the threshold layer. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so this is using frequency separation, adjustment layers, channel selections, and layer masks to remove hotspots from skin.